The flashing red and blue lights hit my house before I even knew what was happening. I stood there on my own driveway, a half-empty cup of lemonade in my hand frozen while two police officers walked up like I was some kind of criminal. One of them said, "Sir, did you lock someone inside your property?" I blinked, confused. "What?" "No. I just locked my own gate." The taller one pointed toward the street. That's when I saw him, Ethan Reynolds, the teenage son of the HOA president, standing there with his arms crossed and that smug little smirk he must have learned from his mother Karen. Apparently, the kid had called 911 because I locked my gate, my own gate. And as ridiculous as that sounded, they were dead serious. That was the night I realized this wasn't about rules anymore, it was about control. To understand how it got that far, I've got to take you back. 6 months earlier, I'd bought this quiet little house on Cedar Ridge Lane. 2 stories, white fence, a porch that looked out over a pond. It felt like the place I'd finally settled down. But on day 3, she showed up. Karen Reynolds. Blonde hair, blue suit, clipboard in hand like it was a badge. "Hello, I'm Karen." "The HOA president," she said, smiling like she was running for office. I told her I wasn't sure my house even belonged to the HOA. The realtor mentioned that the property lines had been redrawn years ago. She waved her hand like I'd just told her a fairy tale. "Everything here is under the HOA's care," she said. "I'll drop off your welcome packet and your monthly dues." That was my first red flag. The woman didn't listen, she enforced. And she had this glint in her eye that look people get when they've convinced themselves they're in charge of everyone else's lives. For a while, things stayed calm. I fixed up the place, painted the porch, even adopted a stray dog, Bruno. But then came the notes. Grass too long. Unauthorized fence modification. Mailbox color violation. Someone even taped photos of my yard to my mailbox with red circles around the issues. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind it. Then came her son Ethan, 16, always on his skateboard, always filming people. Called himself the HOA enforcer. One evening I was working on my gate when I saw him recording me. "Hey kid," I said. "Cut it out." He grinned. "Mom says we have to document violations. Your gate's not HOA approved." That's when I decided to lock it, not out of spite, but because I'd found footprints in my backyard one morning. Somebody had been snooping around. I wanted privacy. What I didn't know was that locking that gate would light a fuse. A few days later, I saw Ethan climbing my fence. "Get down," I yelled. "You can't do that," he shouted back. "You're not supposed to lock it. Mom says it's for neighborhood access," I told him flat out. "Kid, this is private property. Your mom doesn't decide who comes in." He rolled his eyes and stormed off. 10 minutes later, those flashing lights filled the street. Karen came marching up behind the cops like she owned them. "He's blocking community access," she barked. I handed over my deed, my property map, the county stamp showing my home wasn't in the HOA. One officer flipped through it and said, "Ma'am, this property isn't listed under your association." I thought that was the end of it, but Karen's kind doesn't stop when they're wrong. They just double down. The next morning I found a thick envelope taped to my mailbox. Notice of non-compliance. 5 pages of made-up violations totaling more than $600 in fines. My blood boiled. I drove to the county zoning office and the clerk Patty confirmed what I already knew. My property was completely outside HOA jurisdiction. I left there with official documents in hand, feeling victorious. But when I got home, Karen was waiting at the end of my driveway with 2 board members and her son filming the whole thing. "Mr. Davis," she said in that patronizing tone you can't ignore official HOA correspondence. "I'm not ignoring it," I said. "I'm not part of your HOA." She smirked. "Oh, I'm sure you believe that." Ethan chimed in. "Mom says it's illegal to trap people." I looked into the camera. "Then stay off my property, kid." That's when Karen's smile vanished. "You're making this neighborhood hostile," she snapped. "You'll face consequences." And she stormed off. That night I heard a metallic clang outside. I grabbed a flashlight and froze. Karen was prying at my gate with a crowbar. Ethan stood beside her recording. "Karen," I shouted. She dropped the tool and straightened her jacket. "Oh, I was just checking for damage," she lied. "I called the sheriff, but all they could do was take a report. Install cameras," the deputy said. So I did. 2 nights later, my cameras caught Ethan again sneaking around with a screwdriver trying to remove the hinges. I brought the footage to the sheriff. They warned him, but that didn't stop Karen. She came back the next week with a sign, "Community Access Path, Do Not Block," and nailed it to my fence. People started whispering, recording, treating me like I was the problem. That's when I realized she wasn't just harassing me, she was recruiting the neighborhood. I tried to keep my cool, but inside I was cracking. I started to wonder if maybe I was being too stubborn. Maybe I should have just let it go. But then, one morning, I found Bruno limping his paw, caught in a wire snare tied to my fence post. That broke me. I stayed up all night watching the footage. There it was, Ethan again crouching near the fence just before dawn. That's when I stopped doubting myself. Enough was enough. I took the video and the stamped county maps straight to the sheriff's office. The deputy promised action. That evening, a patrol car stopped at Karen's house. I watched through my blinds as they lectured her and her son. For the first time, she looked nervous. But later that night, she came back screaming at my broken gate. "You'll pay for humiliating my family." I filmed the whole thing. The next morning, a formal letter arrived from Cedar Ridge Legal Affairs. Karen had hired a law firm. They accused me of defamation and interfering with HOA operations. She even attached a fake boundary map pushing the HOA line 20 feet into my property. That's when I called a real lawyer, Clara Jennings. She looked through everything and said, "This is textbook HOA overreach. Don't talk to them again, let me handle it." Karen didn't back off. Instead, she sent so-called security guards to patrol my street. They wore fake badges that said Cedar Ridge Safety. One night, one of them walked right up to my fence. I confronted him. "Who sent you?" I asked. "Mrs. Reynolds," he muttered. I told him to leave before I called the cops, and he did fast. That was the night I realized Karen was losing her grip on reality. Then came the graffiti. Bright orange spray paint across my fence, "Rule breaker. Move out." My cameras caught her Ethan and some other man, tall scar on his cheek, snake tattoo on his neck painting in the dark. Clara turned the footage over to the sheriff. "They'll escalate before they fall," she warned me. I didn't realize how right she was. A few nights later, Ethan slipped a note under my door. "She's not herself anymore," it said. "Get out tonight." I remember staring at it, my stomach dropping. I looked across the street. Karen's garage light was still on. Something didn't feel right. I called Clara, told her what the note said. "Get out of the house right now," she told me. "I'm calling the sheriff." I leashed Bruno and started for the back gate. That's when I smelled it gasoline. I followed the trail along the grass to the street and saw her. Karen standing in her driveway with a red gas can and a lighter. Her hair was wild, her face, pale, eyes empty. "You ruined me. Davis," she screamed. "You turned everyone against me. Put it down," I yelled, heart hammering. "You could kill someone." She laughed a sharp, broken sound and dropped the lighter. Fire roared across the ground, racing toward my yard. I grabbed the hose and sprayed, shouting for help. Neighbors ran out with extinguishers, one guy dragging his own hose across the street. The flames hissed, smoke filled the air. Bruno barked like mad. When it was over, Karen was gone. The deputies found the gas can in her driveway, half full, her fingerprints all over it. Clara arrived minutes later, still in her night clothes. "She's finished," she said quietly. The next morning, Karen was arrested for arson, harassment, falsifying documents, the whole list. The county disbanded the Cedar Ridge HOA within the month. I thought I'd feel relief, but mostly I just felt tired. Months of fear and anger had hollowed me out. Ethan came by one afternoon, eyes red, voice shaking. "I tried to stop her," he said. "She wasn't the same anymore." I told him it wasn't his fault. When the dust settled, I replaced the fence, repainted the gate, replanted the grass. Bruno limped for a while, but he healed. The quiet felt strange at first, too empty, too calm, but over time it started to feel like peace again. People like Karen don't start wars because of rules. They start them because they can't stand losing control. And if this whole mess taught me anything, it's that sometimes you have to stand your ground not to win, but to remind people like her where the line really is.